Hi, you guys. Welcome to Audrey's reading area. All right. Shout out to my grandbabies, Korea, Sanaa, David the Third, and Kaden. I love you guys. I miss you guys so much. Don't forget, you guys, click like and share. Don't forget to go to YouTube. Look for Audrey's reading area. Audrey's reading area. Yes. Smash that subscribe button. Do it. Tell everybody about it. Let them subscribe. Let them listen to me read. And I do try to encourage you to open up a book and read on your own. So please do. Alexa, what time is Audrey's reading area?
Audrey Reads in her area live at 8 o'clock p.m.
That's L-I. Let's do it again. L-I-V-E. Live at 8, you guys. All right. Let's do it. Today's Wednesday, Multicultural Wednesdays. So I'm going to be reading a book to you on, it's kind of what they do in a different culture, like back in the country, Western. And this is my gold nugget here. Just use your imagination. This is supposed to be my gold nugget since I didn't have a real gold nugget. And the book I'm reading to you tonight is Striking It Rich. Striking It Rich, the story of the California gold rush. So that's my little gold nugget. That's my little prop for today, okay? So be forgiving. Be forgiving. Okay, this book was written by Stephen Krensky, illustrated by DiVito. Okay? So I'm just going to jump right into this book and read it to you. Striking It Rich, the story of the California gold rush. All right. Try to keep my hat on straight for you. All right, let's jump right into this book. And it has a note to parents and teachers, which I will read at the end if I don't forget to. Striking It Rich, and some nice illustrations there. You look at the little illustrations. Chapter 1, News Travels Fast. Gold. The news was big, if it was true. But was it? San Francisco might be a sleepy little town, but it had heard these stories before. There were always plenty of rumors, boasts, and outright lies when it came to finding gold in the hills. The facts behind this latest story were plain enough. They began with James Marshall, a carpenter. He was helping to build a sawmill on the American River, 100 miles to the east. So look at the map. North, south, east, and west. Okay. Marshall had little education, but he had sharp eyes and was nobody's fool. On January 24, 1848, he was digging in the riverbed. There he spotted a glittering yellow rock. That's my little yellow rock, okay? He spotted a glittering yellow rock no bigger than his thumbnail. Gold, thought Marshall, or maybe iron pyrite, which looks like gold but is more brittle. He struck the metal with a hammer. It flattened but did not break. A good sign. But Marshall was a busy man. He stuck the rock in his hat and went back to work. The little gold thing. It flattened. He put it in his hat and went back to work, doing what he was doing. Later, he rode to Sutter Fort to see his boss, John A. Sutter, born in Switzerland. Sutter had been a farmer, a trader, and a fur trapper. He had never been too successful. Sutter and Marshall carefully examined the rock. They bit it to see if it was soft like gold. It was. They dabbed it with acid to see if it would shine or if it would dim. Or to see if its shine would dim. It didn't. Then they weighed it against silver and other things they knew were lighter than gold. The rock passed every test. It was gold, all right. Sutter told Marshall to keep the gold a secret. It might not amount to much, but it could still distract the men from their jobs. But secrets like that don't last. Sutter's men soon learned what Marshall had found. On Sundays, their day off, they began to look for nuggets and gold dust. Some workers collected enough gold in an hour to equal a month's pay. Imagine that. By the spring of 1848, more and more tales were reaching San Francisco, which was home to 800 people. Miners were bragging about scraping gold off rocks with their knives. Why, one fellow had hit a $50 nugget while digging a hole for his tent pole. Didn't there have to be a little truth to these reports? Many people thought so, and the gold fever spread. Lawyers dropped their clients and soldiers deserted their posts. Let me show you the pictures before I turn. They are digging for that gold. The schoolhouse closed after its only teacher ran off. Then the mayor disappeared, and nobody could complain to the sheriff because he was gone too. By the end of June, San Francisco was almost a ghost town. Stores were empty. Doors blew open in the wind. Dogs roamed the streets and wooden sidewalks with only their shadows for company. Everyone, it seemed, had left for the hills. Wow. Heading west. During the summer of 1848, the news spread slowly eastward. It rode across the prairie on horseback. It paddled up the Mississippi River on steamboats. It blew around South America on sailing ships. At first, people back east were not much impressed. Nobody was sure if the stories were true. After all, talk was cheap, and California was far away. Most Americans didn't know much about California. The territory had only been part of the United States for a few months, since the end of the Mexican War. Its population was small and scattered, a mixture of native tribes, Mexican settlers, and a few American pioneers. And by the way, in case you didn't know, yes, California used to be part of Mexico back in those days. So go ahead and do some research and check it out. Before long, though, California was on everyone's mind. By November, the New York City newspapers were filled with stories about gold. There was talk of streets paved with gold and nuggets as big as apples lying on the ground. Wow, like my little nugget right here, right? Then in December, President James K. Polk spoke to Congress about the gold strike. Based on reports from the Army and government officials, his speech mentioned extensive mines. The abundance of gold, he said, would scarcely command belief. That settled it. Even those people who didn't believe the newspapers had faith in the president. He was bound to know the truth. Now, California was the place to go. In 1848, a decent job as a store clerk or farmer or farmhand might be worth $7 a week. A miner could collect 4 times that much between breakfast and lunch. It all sounded so simple. Spend a few months in California and then return home, pockets filled with gold. The thousands of dreamers who believed this were almost all men and were mostly young, though one was a 19-year-old Revolutionary War veteran. Few traveled with their wives or children if they had them, because they didn't plan to stay very long. First, though, the miners had to get to California. They had to get there, right? One hopeful inventor offered a trip by flying machine. but his balloon floating ship never got off the ground. Instead, travelers went by land or sea. The sea route, the favorite of the Easterners, went down around South America and back up to San Francisco. Hundreds of ships, from elegant clippers to leaky barges, made the trip. The 15,000-mile voyage took from 6 months to a year. Imagine it, having to travel from like, what did it say? From the South America, like, which is below us. We're in North America, South America below us, to travel all the way up to California. And you know, San Francisco is like at the top part of California. 6 months to a year to get there. Wow. Most ships were cramped and crowded. One put so many people into a single room that they had to sleep standing up. Oh boy. Sometimes the passengers were from the same town and knew each other. Often everyone was a stranger, wary of other travelers. On such a long voyage, many passengers got seasick, and could not eat. All feeling it all in the stomach, right? Could not eat. The rest weren't much luckier. The meals had odd names like lobscouse and Grundy. I don't even know what that is, right? The ingredients included salted meat and moldy bread. They were even odder. Salted meat, salt preserves it. Bread is moldy because I guess it's been out of the fridge for a long time. So this is South America, and they had to travel all the way up to the United States. See, this is Canada up here, but this is North America, and this is California, and San Francisco's all the way up there. So they had to travel from down here all the way up. And that, my dears, took six months to a year. Wow. So let us turn the page here. One passenger wrote that his favorite food was anything with dark molasses because it hid the mold and killed the bugs. Ew. OMG, that's them eating right there. OMG. By the end, most sea travelers were tired, sick, hungry, bored, silly, and in need of a bath. Ooh, can you imagine? Some had gambled away their savings. Many were in poor health, but almost all the hurts or hardships were forgotten at the first sight of San Francisco Bay. People from the Midwest favored the land route to California. From Missouri, the trip was 1,800 miles by wagon train. This is the wagon train. A wagon train is a bunch of these wagons like riding together, one behind the other. Although one man walked the distance with his belongings in a wheelbarrow, 1,800 miles. A typical wagon was 10 feet long, 4 feet wide, and pulled by oxen or mules. The wagon train might have just a few wagons or several dozen. The wagon master led the train and settled any problems along the way. He also gave out chores, gathering firewood or water, keeping lookout or cooking food. One wagon train even made its members change their underwear each week. Each week? They changed their underwear each week. They made them change it weekly. Oh, wow. And carry 3 pounds of soap for baths. Days on the trail were long, dusty, and hot. The ride was bumpy. Travelers carried weapons to defend themselves from rattlesnakes, grizzly bears, and Indians. But more men were killed by accidents with guns than by any run-ins they had along the trail. One big killer on the trail was chloria, a disease caused by, let me show you this picture before I turn. A disease caused by a bacteria found in water. It passed through rivers, wells, even canteens. It's an interesting story. And it acted fast. So that disease spread really quickly, really fast. A man could feel feverish in the morning and be dead by sunset. OMG. Cholera, oh my goodness, cholera, I think that's it. Cholera seemed thousands of lives. It claimed thousands of lives among the gold seekers during the spring and summer of 1849. The third route to California took the least time if things went well, but they really did go well. Travelers took a boat ride to Central America, walked 60 miles across Panama, and took another boat ride up to California. The sea trips held few dangers because they were brief. The overland walk was the tricky part. The Panama jungle was hot and filled with mosquitoes that carried malaria, a usually fatal disease. The jungle also was home to flamingos, parrots, and monkeys. But most travelers were in too much of a hurry to notice. They were just trying to get there, huh? Whether they came by boat or wagon train, about 80,000 people reached California in 1849. 80,000 people reached California in 1849. These were the 49ers, hopeful miners, who had survived the worst trips of their lives. They could afford to smile and shake one another's hands. Now, they thought, their worries were over. Little monkeys and stuff, flamingos. Now they thought their troubles and worries were over. All right, the mining life. Most of the gold seekers had rushed to California without much thought. Some bought all the comforts of home, wooden chairs and tables, fancy dishes, even crystal lamps. Others were more practical. They brought raincoats, heavy boots, canvas tents, and cooking pans. But almost no one knew how to mine for gold. And nobody cared. Everyone was still dazzled by the wild success stories they had heard. One miner had fallen down a hill, dug into the dirt at the bottom, and struck it rich. Another had seen his mule pulling up tufts of grass and flecks of gold, too. The biggest nugget found in 1849 weighed 161 pounds and was worth $38,000. So anything seemed possible. It's like my nugget right here, right? I'm just saying. Wise travelers spent little time in San Francisco, where a small hotel room rented for $1,800 a month. The price of a new house back east. Even a house cat cost $8 to $12. Wow. That's like rent right now here in Georgia. Well, actually cheaper now for a whole month. Instead, hopeful miners took a 3-day ferry ride to the hills, where they began hunting for gold in and around the mountain rivers. One newcomer was amazed to see a seasoned miner pull a nugget from the bark of a tree. He had climbed halfway up a nearby pine to try his luck before he saw the miner laughing at him down below. When a gold seeker started mining for real, the first thing he did was stake a claim. To do this, he would drive 4 pegs into the ground at the corners. I guess he's staking a claim at the corners of a piece of land beside a river. To hold his claim, he had to keep working it. A claim left unattended for a week was up for grabs, unless the miner was sick. Their rules, look. A miner's day started early. Up at dawn, he wasted no time getting dressed because he never changed his clothes. After a quick meal of bacon, biscuits, and strong coffee, he headed for the river. If the miner was working alone, he stood in the river wearing high boots to keep out the cold As the water rushed by, he scooped sand and water into a metal pan with raised sides, which often doubled as his frying pan. Then he carefully swished the grits around. Swish, swish, swish. The sand or dirt was swept to the edges of the pan, leaving the heavier gold or gold dust in the middle. The miner would empty the pan and then scoop up another load of sand and water. Some miners worked in teams. 3 men could sift through sand and silt more quickly than one if they used a rocker or a long tom. Show you the picture of this man sifting, trying to get his gold. Show it to you again. The rocker was a wooden box about 3 feet long that sat in a rocking cradle. Let me, sorry you guys, don't want to lose you. It had cleats and screens to separate the dirt from the gold. One man shoveled in the dirt, a second poured in the water, and the third rocked the cradle. Rocked the cradle. The long tom was a bigger box, 8 to 14 feet long. It had sieves and screens and cleats too, but it didn't rock. Instead, a long tom required a steady stream of running water. So I'm guessing this is the long tom, right? A steady stream of running water, so they could sift through it and find the gold. Digging, rocking, or swishing a pan was tiring. Imagine doing that all day long. And the river water was painfully cold. In many places, the mosquitoes were so thick, it was said they could lift a hat off a man's head. Now that's a little scary. I'm just saying. Wow. They said it was so thick it could lift a hat off a man's head if he wasn't paying attention. After sunset, the miners staggered back to their tents or slept under the stars. In the few boarding houses, miners were stacked like wood in low bunks without pillows or sheets. On Sundays, the miners rested. They washed and put on their best clothes. They even combed out their beards, braiding or coiling them in tails. One miner was known for dividing his beard in half and tying it in a bow under his chin. Can you imagine? Tying it in a bow. This is his beard. This is their beards. Interesting. If enough miners settled in one place for a few months, they called it a town and gave it a name like Fairplay, Bedbug, or Grizzly Flats. Soon, someone would open a general store and someone else a saloon. Although storekeeping was not as exciting as mining, it was much more dependable. Most goods in the hills were traded for gold dust. One pinch, let me show you the pictures. They made a little town up here, huh? One pinch of gold dust, one pinch was worth $1, but not everyone's pinch was the same. So if I pinch, I give you a little tiny pinch. Somebody can give a big pinch. All the pinches weren't the same. Many storekeepers got rich by selling shirts for $40 and boots for $20 in gold. Gold dust. 10 times their price back east. Sugar, potatoes, and apples were $2 a pound, 50 times the usual price. For a hungry miner who couldn't wait, a slice of bread cost $1. Buttered bread cost $2. Over time, it became clear that not everyone was suited to mining. Some miners gave up after a day of hard work. Others endured months of empty stomachs, blistered hands, and crushed fingers before quitting. These men could still earn a living, though. Some became messengers, charging busy miners 50 cents to mail a letter and $2 to pick one up in San Francisco. So you want to mail something or pick up mail, they got jobs charging you. The few women in the camps could cook for $30 a day. And one former miner made $14 a day by playing the violin in a gambling house. I guess they needed that entertainment, huh? So this is a picture of all the different things that they did. Interesting. But most miners didn't quit, even for a well-paying job. There were 6,000 of them at the beginning of 1849, and tens of thousands more by the end. Each was searching for the one lucky strike that would make his fortune and send him home a hero. The dust settlers. The miners of 1848 found the California hills pretty friendly. Their needs were simple, and there was enough gold to go round. No robberies and few fights were reported. When winter came, the miners gathered their savings and brought them to the banks in San Francisco. By 1850, these same miners could only shake their heads or scratch their beards. Shake their heads or scratch their beards at the change. San Francisco built 600 new buildings in 1849, and its population jumped to 34,000 by 1852, larger than Washington, D.C. Land lots that once sold for $16 were now worth $15,000. A miner in town had to stay alert. Yeah, look at that. They had to stay alert and be prepared for trouble. Oh boy. It was a slow news day when no one was killed and no robberies were reported. In 1849, the average miner earned $16 a day. In 1850, it was roughly half that. Oh, wow. The mines and cities were built on success, but they also were jammed with poor and desperate men. News of the gold strike had drawn miners from around the world. From Europe, Australia, China, and South America. Most of the Chinese came from southern China, where crops had failed and jobs were few. The Chinese described California as Gumshan, the mountain of gold. It was a land of hope to a starving peasant. Aww. The land offered little hope to some. The hundreds of Yel Sumni and members of other native tribes who lived in the hills before anyone else had already been pushed aside. But anyone whose skin was not white or who spoke English with a strange accent was badly mistreated. I'm going to read that again. Anyone whose skin was not white or who spoke English with a strange accent, was badly mistreated. They had to pay special taxes and did not have the freedom to mine where they wanted. Some new towns even posted signs to keep these miners away. Do we remember what that's called, you guys? Do you remember what that is called? You're right, you remembered a long time. Good job. The government should have stepped in, but there wasn't much government to go around. No police had been hired and few laws had been passed. The army had its hands full, keeping soldiers from deserting to the gold fields. A few alcaldes, getting tongue-tied, a mixture of judge and mayor, who had retained their positions from the day of Mexican rule, was scattered through the countryside. Their power was limited, however. The most serious crime in the mining camps was claim jumping. So you're trying to jump and claim somebody else's spot that they already claimed. Uh-oh, that's a serious crime. Murder came next. Once a suspect was caught, a judge and jury were picked, usually from the miners themselves. A quick trial was held. Since there were no jails, those who were judged guilty were punished at once. One stubborn thief who refused to reveal where he had hidden a stolen sack of gold was tied to a tree bareback. 3 hours and many mosquitoes bites later, he finally talked. Wow. But even this rough justice varied. If an American stole a mule, he was whipped. If a Mexican stole one, he was hanged, even if nobody had proof. Back in San Francisco, street gangs like the Sydney Ducks from Australia terrorized many people. In July 1849, they attacked and looted a Chilean neighborhood. Several people died and dozens more were hurt. Slowly, things began to change. At the end of 1849, a governor was elected and a constitution was passed. Less than a year later, on September 9, 1850, the territory of California officially became a state. Yes, a state of the United States. So, September 9, 1850, the territory of California officially became a state. The new state had a population of 92,000. Its future capital, Sacramento City, which hadn't even existed 2 years before, was booming. A visitor could take, and by the way, it is beautiful there, you guys. Beautiful. Went to San Francisco, and I went river rafting in Sacramento. Beautiful. Visit. Okay. It says, a visitor could take a long nap in Sacramento and awake to find a new building had gone up while he slept. What? It was a wild and woolly time. Laws seemed to change every day, and when people shook hands on a deal, they counted their fingers afterward to make sure none were missing. In the meantime, let's check out the picture here. Check out the picture. There's a lot to see. So feel free to pause the video if you want to check it out some more. In the meantime, the work of mining became more organized. By 1851, teams of men were damming rivers to mine their bottoms. Other groups drilled tunnels in the hillsides. Mining was becoming big business. Thousands of solitary miners still clogged the riverbeds, sifting sand in their tin pans. They didn't know it, but their greatest days had already passed. They're chilling, eating. Their greatest days had already passed. The country moves on. Even after 1850, tens of thousands of people arrived in California each year looking for gold. They tended to stay whether they found it or not. Life in California was exciting, and even failed miners were reluctant to give it up. San Francisco survived several major fires, rebuilding itself with alarming speed. During the 1850s, granite and brick gradually replaced rickety wood buildings. Solid wharfs stretched out into the bay. Some people saw there was as much money to be made from the miners as from the mines. Charles Crocker started with a general store in Sacramento and became one of the richest men in California. Collins Huntington sold shovels to miners in Sacramento. Mark Hopkins supplied them with hardware, and both men made vast fortunes through trade, real estate, and transportation. Meanwhile, a former pots and pans peddler from New York came west with a shipment of thick tent cloth. I'm sure he made a lot of money, right? His name was Levi Strauss. Them Levi jeans, is that the same guy? I'm just saying. The market for tents was bad, so Strauss turned his canvas into, look at that! He turned his canvas into sturdy denim pants and sold them for $1 a piece. Levi's, that's where he came from. It was supposed to be tent material. He made them into jeans and sold them for $1 a piece. By the 1860s, hundreds of people worked for Levi Strauss & Company, making thousands of pants and work shirts a year. You know they're not $1 anymore. Y'all do know that. They are not $1 anymore. Those Levi jeans. In 1850, there were fewer than 1,500 California farmers. Californians imported much of their food, flour from Chile, for example, or vegetables from Hawaii. It took time for Eastern farmers to adjust to California's growing season, but they learned fast. By 1860, there were 20,000 farmers, and more land was used for farming every day. The West was opening up faster than anyone had expected. In 1869, a new railroad connected the East and West coasts. The trip only took a week, and a speed undreamed of 20 years earlier, because remember, it took 6 months to a year to get there, and now it only took a week. So, got some farmers here. Then they got this train going on. As the former 49ers settled down, most realized they had never made the fortunes they had hoped for. Neither James Marshall nor John Sutter ever became rich from their discovery. Marshall never again struck any gold worth mentioning, and he ended up a poor blacksmith. They build the shoes. They make the shoes for the horses. Blacksmith. Cast iron stuff. They probably make the cast iron pants too. I don't know. Sutter, meanwhile, made and lost several fortunes before moving back east to live out his last years in Pennsylvania. But successful or not, all the miners had one thing in common. From city slicker to grizzled mountain man, each had played a colorful role in a truly American adventure. How cool is this book? The end. And so here's a guide to help you say some of the words in this book. So this will help you. You can pause and read. This will help you pronounce these words, some of these words that I probably mispronounced, and I apologize for that in advance. So I promised you, if I remembered, I would read the little note in the front to parents and teachers. So to parents and teachers, children learn to read in a variety of ways, through formal teaching in school, being read aloud to at home, and reading on their own, using all the tools they've learned from making sense of letters and words. The process starts with the child's first awareness that letters on the page from words, which make sentences, which make stories. No one method of learning is right for every child, but all children need books that they can read successfully. Hence Audrey's reading area, right? I'm just saying. Ready to read. Ready to read books feature classic stories and interesting nonfiction books. That means it's true. Fiction books means it's not true. It's a made-up story. Like the superheroes. Okay? So that's fiction. So nonfiction by authors who really know how to write for this age group. They're grouped at 3 levels. Level 1, with repetitive, predictable text for children who are just starting to read. Level 2, for those who can read with help and are ready for slightly greater challenges. And level 3, for children who can read fiction and nonfiction on their own with fewer illustrations and longer texts. At each level, the books are all written, designed, and illustrated to suit the interests, needs, and abilities of new readers. That is so cool. Children in preschool and the early elementary grades are universally fascinated with reading and are already saying, I'm ready to read. When they finish a ready-to-read book, we want them to say, I am reading and I like it. Say it, you guys. I am reading and I like it. All right, you guys. Thanks for being here as I read these fun, exciting, and different culture books. striking it rich. That was the culture back in the 1800s. And pretty sure they're not searching for gold anymore right now. But thank you for listening. Thanks. Shout out to my mom. My mom kind of helped me choose my little outfit for today, and I kind of had to wing it with the gold nugget. But thanks for understanding. Thanks, Mom. Thank you for being here. Shout out to everybody who shares my videos. I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you for liking and sharing. Thank you for subscribing to Audrey's Reading Area. Thank you. So I'll see you tomorrow. Yes, I will. Live. Let's do it together. Live. Live at 8, you guys. I will see you tomorrow. I'll see ya tomorrow. Come on, y'all. It's only one day away. Just one. So I'll see you tomorrow live at 8. Yes. Get ready to listen. Get ready to pick up your own book and read. So I will see you soon. Audrey's Reading Area.